Hey guys, Connor Matesius from UC Cooperative Extension here one more time. Just wanted to go over some examples of some wheat seed samples that they're putting out for FFA, for seed quality judging. And I use some of the terminology in here that would be used to describe these particular samples, as well as some of my thoughts on some of these particular samples. First one, this is the nicest seeds that we've got available. In here, the keywords I would be looking for is uniform, clean, they have a bright color. It's kind of hard to tell, I guess, with the photo using the phone lens, but you might see compared to some of the other samples, it actually is a slightly brighter color. That is quite difficult to see, I guess. But so bright, uniform, and clean. However, we do have some seed in here, and this is I think we've identified this as alfalfa seed. We've got a little bit of alfalfa seed. There's another one that shows up in here. Hard to see that, but I would call that another crop. You'd say that's an other crop. There's more right there. There's not a lot of it. It's not ideal, but it's good seed quality. And the main thing is there's no weed seed in here. So that's a huge one. There's certainly no noxious weed seed. Move into your second choice. This is, again, a little tricky to see there. I just hit the focus on it. You can see there's some of these kernels are a little more chalky is the way you'd kind of describe it. And that means like this guy right here is really quite chalky compared to some of its neighbors. And there's actually quite a lot of chalky kernels in here, which is kind of indicative of them perhaps being having low protein, which could cause some poor germination. There's also some inert material, but I wouldn't just say foreign material or inert material. I'd actually just call this what it is. This is chaff or even straw. Right? So this is not sticks or something like that. There's some damaged or this is kind of a diseased kernel potentially down in there. This guy right there. So that might be something to look out for. There is a little bit of alfalfa seed in here as well, but these are all still also fairly plump and have, all things aside, they're okay. The chalky color might be, or what you would call yellow berries is another good term there. There's some cracked seed in here as well. I don't know if I can see any right now. But those are some of the terms you'd want to use. Inert matter or chaff, cracked seeds, yellow berries with that chalky color. And that chalky color might mean lower grain protein, which could kind of affect your stand establishment and lower the seedling kind of vigor at emergence. So here's our next one. This has got a couple problems in here. First thing is very obvious here is there's another crop in here. This looks like it could be of crop out here that's blanking on me right now, but it is actually safflower. So it's not actually weed species, it's safflower. You can tell because it's larger than some of the other weed seeds that you see out there. And that's a big no-no, right? Like that's not as bad as weeds, but it is another crop and it will be competitive. And you are paying for stuff that's not really valuable. There is as well, if you look, it's hard to see here, but now there I just focused it. This is all hard white, but this is hard red. This is actually a different variety of wheat entirely. That's a little harder to pick up, but if you do, that's one thing. You can also say something like, "Oh, it's potentially the case that we have a different variety of wheat in there." There are also some shriveled seeds in here, like this guy isn't looking too happy. Back here, there's a few back here that are kind of shriveled. Right there is one. So there's a couple of shriveled seeds in there. There's another crop, which is the safflower, and then there's another variety of wheat entirely. So those are the key terms to look for in that one. And here is our most egregious offender, where we have another crop, which is oat. That's oat, and that is oat. But right here, we also have wild oat in particular. And that in particular is really problematic. But worse than all of that is this guy, which is tricky because it kind of looks like vetch sometimes. It kind of looks like burr clover. It kind of looks like a few things, but actually this is bindweed. It's quite round. I would, recommend knowing what bindweed looks like. I would recommend knowing what all the main noxious weed seeds look like. If I can get one of these guys on the surface. That is actually bindweed. It's a little rounder than some of the other stuff, the other things that look similar to it. So that's the #1 offender there. You've got a noxious, restricted weed, which happens to be field bindweed. Those would be key terms to look for. There is a common weed in here, which is wild oat. In some places, it is actually not considered noxious, though, on a federal level, I think. And then you've also got an other crop, which is just oat. So those are the keywords I'd be looking for there. Otherwise, the seed quality here is pretty good in terms of like the actual seed itself. But these are big time no-nos. So good to keep that in mind. Definitely put that on the bottom.